Hello and welcome to the Three Peaks podcast, where we take a break from the hike of life and appreciate the view. Today we have a very special guest, Danielle White. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me today, you guys.
So we're going to give you a quick moment to tell us a little bit more about yourself and some of your hobbies and your career.
Okay, well, there's a lot to tell. So a little bit about myself. My hobbies include, if you know me at all, you know that I love fitness. I'm really into fitness, health and wellness, all aspects of it, not just the aesthetics of like looking good, but like feeling good, having a clear, open mindset. Me and my husband also run a production company where we put on live events all over the country. We've put on shows for Colby Calais. We've put on shows for Harry Hudson. Those are our two biggest ones that we've kind of done the last couple of years, nice. Pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. And we also own Color Me Rad and Dirty Dash, which are two 5K fun runs that we've kind of done all over the place. I also coach inside of a fitness program that I created and owner of Iron Butterfly Fitness, where I coach women all different ages of how to learn to love their body, find balance in their life, and just kind of navigate whether it's weight loss or balance in mindset and spirituality, all those fun little aspects. So
yeah. And you mentioned that you have a business called Iron Butterfly Fitness. Could you just tell us like a little more about what you do?
Yeah, so inside of that, it's an online coaching program that I have where we do like weekly calls with my clients. In the very beginning, we kind of set up, I go into their goals. We do goal setting. So like if I have a client, we kind of type out their goals of what they want to accomplish in whatever time frame the program is. I've done 90-day programs. I've done 30 and 60-day challenges before. It's kind of starts out always physical. Like everyone comes to me wanting to lose weight and like feel great, right? That's like I want to lose weight and feel great. But what they don't realize is there's so many levels to that. And if you don't have a healthy mindset and you're happy with yourself on the inside, no matter what you look like on the outside, those don't change. And so we kind of dive into, we kind of go deep into kind of like belief systems and like your own personal appearance of like how you view yourself, and then any kind of roadblocks they have. So I take them through goal setting, and then I teach them something that I have called the foundation, which is a system that I created where inside of my own life, when I was trying to navigate all that, like losing weight, feeling great, getting rid of like horrible mindset and thoughts that we have about ourselves in our brains, right? That we all kind of go through. And it's where we invest in 4 areas of our life every day. So every day we invest in our fitness, our faith, our future, and our family. And so by kind of creating a foundation, that's why it's called the foundation. It's kind of cliche, but you set that foundation up every day. You hit those 4 key elements, your day always just goes better. Because what I teach my girls is if you invest in yourself first, then whether you're a mom or a career woman or a college student or a high school student, you've already created that foundation of investing in the things that are important to you. And then it kind of sets you up for just so much more control and strength throughout the rest of your day.
Yeah, and then you also mentioned a little bit back that it's great to build body confidence. And so I'm just wondering, why do you think it's important for us to create that?
Because honestly, like, it's like I have a daughter who's 11, and I tell her, like, you only get one body. Like, I believe you get one shot, we're here, you get one body, and how you feel in that body kind of dictates how you experience your life, right? So it's like, it's the vehicle you're driving in. So if I'm driving in like a clunker that I don't know is going to get me from A to B, and every time I get in my car, I'm like, let's see if we get there. Or if I'm in like a Ferrari where I'm like, yeah, look at, like I'm rolling down the road in this like supercar, there's 2 different feelings, right? And so I would love to experience life in the Ferrari because I feel like that would just be way more fun than like the Nova I drove in high school, where I was like, all right, Nellie, let's get to school. Let's just get there. Every day was like, I'm not sure if we're going to make it or not. So that's kind of why I think it's important.
Yeah, and then also on your Iron Butterfly website, it mentions that you don't really focus as much on like calories and losing all of that. And so, because I mean, other fitness programs are mostly focused on losing all those calories and stuff like that. So I'm just wondering, why did you put that little like difference on there?
I love that you asked that question because so I'm in my 40s and in my 20s. So when I was in high school, I was an athlete and I wasn't confident in my body. I wasn't secure in who I was. I am a very muscular girl. And back in the 90s, back in the old days is what my son says. I'm like, that is not the old days. But back in the 90s, like girls weren't muscular. Like, so I would go lift weights in the gym with the other athletes in high school. And I wasn't really treated very feminine, if that makes sense. And so I grew up coming out of high school, not really loving my body, but actually hating what I looked like. And so for like a good decade of my life, I literally tried everything, whether it was like juice, like drinking nothing but carrot juice to be skinny. And I did macro counting. I did like paleo, all the things. Like literally, if it came out, I tried it because I was so unhappy with me. And as I kind of grew up and had life experiences and went through things where what your body looks like is kind of like not as important when you're just kind of trying to get through life, right? I went through divorce. I learned that I'm unique and I'm special. And all those ways that I was trying to like look a certain way, and they never worked because it kind of went against who I was as a person. So that's where I discovered body typing. And in Iron Butterfly, I teach my clients about your body type. So we're designed a certain way. We have muscular, we have long and lean, and we have like the in between. And the way your body composition is made up is scientifically, like they've kind of dove into those three things. And that really spoke to me as a trainer, as I was kind of finding myself in my late 20s. You know, I was a Pilates instructor at the time and just learning about, if you guys know anything about Pilates, it's like the ballerina workout. Okay, well, I'm like 5'3", not 5'7", and I have muscles, and ballerinas don't look like me. And so I'm in this atmosphere and I'm training all these people, and I'm like, I don't look anything like these people. And I'm like, kind of like embarrassed by my muscles. And I kind of just hit this place where I just wanted to love myself. And I could fake it really well, but deep down inside, it wasn't there. And so as I started kind of going through all the calorie counting and the macro counting, two things happened. I became super obsessed with what I was eating and it was controlling my life, which I didn't like. And two, I still wasn't happy. Like I lost weight and I was skinny, right? But I was like angry and always hangry, and I was always like depleted. I still looked in the mirror and I didn't like what I looked like. And so as I started kind of just discovering what worked for me with body type eating and intuitional eating, I took all of that out of it. And there was this sense of freedom in just learning to appreciate and love food and not be afraid of it. And I think a lot of people grow up and they're afraid of food because we're not taught how to appreciate it, how to eat it. If we want certain results, what to do with it. We're taught, hey, everything's fast and convenient. And then if you can weigh it, even if it's not healthy, if it fits in your macros, you can eat it, but it's not really going to make you feel very good. And there's just a really big, once you get out of that range where you're like, how am I fueling my Ferrari? I always call my body my Ferrari. How am I fueling my Ferrari? And I teach my girls that. It's like, okay, if you're hungry, eat. If you're not, don't. But let's start looking at what we're putting in our body. And if you want your supercar to perform, you can't put like low grade unleaded fuel in it. It's going to break. And your body is very similar than a machine, right? It is a machine. So that's kind of why I really, it's so mainstream right now. Macros are very mainstream. And when you coach with me, I'm like, throw them away. Like it's just, I don't want you sitting down to a meal and going, I got to weigh this first. I got to measure this first. And I also teach like eating by like with your hands. So like we portion control with like using our thumbs, our fist, right? So how easy is it for you guys to go to a restaurant and you're like, I can't eat that because I don't have a scale with me. Or you're like, okay, I have like 4 ounces of chicken. I have a big handful of veggies. And then I've got my little starches, which is like a fist. So much easier to just, and then your body's like, yes, Thank you. You're figuring it out. It's great. Oh, I just lost your mic. I can't hear you. Oh, I hear you now.
Okay.
There you go. There you
Okay.
go.
So you mentioned that you've done Pilates, and I've done Pilates myself. And like you said, I have a muscular build because I weightlift.
Yeah.
So yeah. So when you're doing Pilates, like sorry, I'm so sorry. So my question is, why do you think it's important to do Pilates? Because I think a lot of people do that to like lose weight instead of like actually focusing on like building like confidence and stuff like that.
You are like my heart child here. I love, you're asking me all the good questions. So Pilates was actually the first form of fitness that I found that I was like, this is home for me. I grew up doing so I lifted weights in high school because I ran track and played basketball. So I was in the conditioning classes. And back then we all just lifted the same. Like there wasn't women's bodies were different, men's were which we're built differently. So I was like squatting with the boys and deadlifting, and I built a lot of muscle in high school, which was great. However, I didn't like it at the time. So when I fell into Pilates, I was a gym rat. I went and I lifted, I did like the step aerobics, I did weightlifting classes, and then I went to Pilates. And what I love about Pilates is I walked in and I have never sweat so much lying down ever. Like I'm laying down and I'm like, what is happening right now? My heart's racing, my body's fatigued, and I'm like on my back. And so I was like, maybe there's something to this. And she became my mentor, but in the beginning she was my trainer. She was pregnant and she was bouncing around and doing teasers and just feeling so amazing. And she was 7 months pregnant. And I remember looking at her going, okay. And she was my age and we were in our 20s. And I was like, all right, there's something here, because if she can do that when she's like almost 8 months pregnant at the time, there's got to be something to this. So I kind of got addicted to it and I just started going more and more. And one thing that I love about Pilates is, and I love that you touched on, like it's building strength from the inside out. So in Pilates, we teach, it's not your quick fix. It's not like and I also love HIIT. I'm also the queen of HIIT. I love HIIT training where it's like, you go all out. You kind of want to swear sometimes, but you don't. And you're like just gassed, right? But your body's like, so I love the two, and they're so polar opposites. And I think that's why I love them. But Pilates, people will come to Pilates and they expect to just lose weight like that. They're like, well, I'm just going to lose weight. But one thing that with what Joseph Pilates built, so he was so ahead of his time, is you build strength from the inside out. We take our clients from just not so much looking, but feeling. And in the end, you guys, I'm here to tell you, with all my 40 years of experience in life, it is about how you feel. Like you could look amazing and still feel like complete crap, right? But if you feel good, you look good. You literally won't even change a thing on the outside, but if you feel good, you're like, I look good. And you're confident in who you are and you walk better. And so with Pilates, what I tell my clients is you've got to give us like 10 sessions, because in about 5, you start to feel a little bit better. You're like holding yourself, your posture, and you can probably attest to this because you do Pilates. The first couple times you just feel kind of silly because you're like, your legs are in the air and you're trying to do teasers or you're piking and you're like, your body's not connecting. But once you start to go and get used to the movements, you have this internal connection where your brain connects with these little engagement muscles. And then by 20, we always say by 20 sessions, you do look different. You look leaner, you look taller, because you're carrying yourself better and you're building strength from the inside out. So you're helping the little muscles are actually helping the big muscles do their job. And that's why when I started training, I do Pilates and I do lifting and HIIT, because I feel like there's so much benefit to cross training, but Pilates is always my home. Like that's where I truly love the foundation build is there.
And coming back to something that you said before, building strength inside and outside. And I believe that is a great saying and can also be applied to people that are younger, because people that are younger are new to the world and they trying to figure it out. So what is your experience of going through the pain of growing up? Sorry.
You're good. Great question. So my experience, and I actually was talking to my mother about this just a couple days ago. Funny thing that you asked that. I think that if I was to tell the younger generation one thing, it was like the golden ticket of like how to get through growing up and all the growing pains. It's learn to appreciate and not be afraid of hard work. So many times we are afraid of like doing the hard things, right? And so you never really and in the middle of hard work, it's hard work, right? You're like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be a part of it. But there is so much value in just putting your shoulders down and saying, you know what, this is what I'm doing, and I'm going to do a good job. I'm going to do the best job I can. And it's not going to be enjoyable all the time, but I know if I keep my head down and my shoulders down and just go through it, then I'm going to come out the other side. So I think that's probably and always also, if you're submerged in hard work, it's really hard to get caught up in comparing the comparison game, because you're busy, right? If you're busy moving towards your target, you don't have the time or the energy to sit and go, well, I should be like that person, or I should be like that person. You're more focused on kind of what you're going towards. And by getting used to hard work, it never goes away. I always tell my kids, I'm like, hard work never goes away. I hate to tell you this, but like, you don't graduate high school or college and you're like, oh, now the work is done. It's just one more chapter. So you get all the nuts and bolts in that, and then the next version of yourself that you're growing into requires hard work too. And even me in my 40s, I'm like, I have more hard work ahead of me every day. So it's just not being afraid of hard work, and then finding the lesson that you get inside of it. Because so many times we're stuck in the muck, and we're like kind of turn into victims, right? Have you guys ever been in a place where you're like, oh, poor me, everyone, feel sorry for me. And when we do that, we're not serving ourselves. And what I've learned going through a lot of hard lessons I've had in my own life is hard work, put my shoulder down and just getting through it, and then coming out the other side and looking back and going, okay, what did I learn from that? How can I take this into the future version of myself, so I don't A, repeat it, and B, it makes me a stronger person. And I think I'm a naturally optimistic person. But there's been times in my life where it's been hard to see the light and the good side of things. And so one thing with me is like, I do a lot of journaling. At the end of my day, part of my foundation that I do is gratitude every night before bed. So I'll write down 1 to 3 things that I was like, that were a blessing in my life that day. And sometimes it's super easy. And then other days I'm like, I can't even think of one, but it's like, I'm still breathing. Okay. Thank you, God. I'm still breathing, So it's like, it's always finding gratitude, even inside the hard things. There's always something to be grateful for. And I know that kind of sounds cliche. I know that the younger guys are like, really? But it's so true. Like, there's so much power in gratitude. Like, you just don't see it yet until you become old like me. And then you're like, it's true. It is.
And at the beginning of this interview, you were mentioning a personal experience with you being on the track team, and you were having like a different body shape than everyone else, and you just kind of felt like an outsider. So my question to you is, how much have you seen yourself changed with just learning to love yourself?
Oh, so much. You know what's crazy, you guys? When I was young, when I was your age, what are you guys? You're high school, right? High school age?
Yeah.
So when I was your age, I was so shy, like so shy. And I loved high school. It was really fun, but I was like everyone's best friend, right? So like prom came around, I'd get everyone set up on dates, and then I'd be like, anyone? No? All right. So like, there was things that I experienced where I was like, all the guy friends I had were like my brothers, and then I was always connecting them with my other girlfriends, and then there was Danielle in the middle. And it was hard for me. Like, high school in that realm was hard. And I was in a conditioning class with boys, and to share a personal story, I remember I had a crush on one of the boys in that class. And I have muscles, I have strong legs. At the time I was like, and you could probably relate to this, when you're lifting, you just feel so strong. You're just like, yeah, and like you get this high. Well, on the other side of that, you start to build muscle. So you get like strong legs. And I kind of started feeling uncomfortable about it because I was looking kind of masculine, if you will. That's what I thought. And I overheard the boy I had a crush on in this class, he commented on my tree trunk legs. And it crushed me. And I remember thinking, there's like, no wonder no one will ask me out on a date because I look like I have tree trunks on, and I took that to this place where it kind of defined who I was. And that actually led to some of the eating disorders that I've had to overcome and body dysmorphia that I've had. And I don't blame that kid. Like, he was just being a kid, he was just talking to his buddies, whatever. But if I had a better self-image and I could have looked at him and gone, you're right, and I can out squat you, and that's probably why you just said that, that would have been a whole different experience. But I was so insecure with who I was as a girl at that time, that it really affected me quite differently to where I struggled with, eating disorders, and trying to run track. Not eating food is pretty hard. I don't know if you have to eat food to get energy to run. So the last couple months of my senior year, I really struggled. And so coming out of that, what really flipped it for me, honestly, was I went through a divorce, and in my 20s, and I met my current husband, who I have now. And we had a conversation because I was still pretty insecure when we got married. And I remember him sitting down and looking at me and saying, you are not like anyone else on this earth. So why in the world do you expect to look and be like someone else? Because I was constantly comparing myself to like the Pilates ballerinas, all these people that I would train. And it really struck me pretty deep. And he gave me space to kind of think about it and kind of sit in that of like, Danielle, why are you chasing after all these different looks? And why don't you just, like, what would it feel like if you just harnessed your own superpower of what makes you you and what makes you unique? And that was the first part of my journey where, for the first time, I actually started asking myself questions of like, what if, like, what would it feel like if I could stand in front of a mirror and just love myself completely? And it took a lot of years, and I still go through, like, life's a roller coaster. But that was the first thing the first opportunity I got was someone who saw me for who I really was and said, I think you're amazing. What's wrong with you? Why don't you think this? And then I was like, I don't know. What would it feel like to think that? And then from there, I just started my own journey on discovering who I was as a person. So
And why do you think it's important to discover who you are? Because obviously, when you don't really know who you are, you're like very insecure and you always compare yourself. And obviously, it's also super hard to find yourself. So like, why is it important to find yourself?
I feel like it's tremendously important to find yourself, because if you don't know who you are, then you are vulnerable to other people telling you who you are. If you don't know your worth, then you leave a huge hole, and someone else can tell you what you're worth. And if we don't protect that space, if you guys don't protect your space of what your worth is, you leave yourself open to good or bad. I would pray that it would always be good forces coming in and saying, you're amazing, and these cheerleaders, right? But let's be real, the world is not full of cheerleaders, especially now. It's kind of like everyone's looking for that hole to slingshot a big rock in and like knock you down. So if you can find your foundation of your belief system of who you are. And for me, it started as, I'm a daughter of God. And then from there, I'm like, okay, if he thinks I'm amazing, he believes in me, then my husband thinks I'm amazing, he believes in me, my parents. So I started like building up this, if you will, visualize this hole in a cave. I started adding rocks to this door of all the people who believed in me. And by the time my list was done, that big hole was covered and I was protected as the whole person that I feel like I am today. And there's always going to be vulnerable spots. Like you'll go through life and a wall will fall down in a place, but as you develop skills and like the commitment of consistency of like diving into who you are, what makes your soul light up, what dreams and goals do you have, and then always saying, I am my best friend. For a long time, you guys, I argued with my body. Like I have this relationship with my body where it's kind of weird. I get it, but it's fine. Like there's Danielle and then there's Danielle's body. And like we have to be friends, right? And I teach this inside of Iron Butterfly too. I let the girls step outside of their body for a moment as them with nothing else attached to it, in a spiritual sense, if you will. And then our body is like our best friend. And if we have a best friend and we're talking crap on our best friend, would we ever do that? No. So if my body is my best friend, it kind of changes the way I start talking about her or him, right? So that was a huge game changer for me, was starting to look at my body fights like heck to get up every day. She keeps breathing, her heart keeps pumping. Sometimes I don't feed her very well and she stays alive. Sometimes I like work her out to where she like legitimately wants to die, but she's still here. You know, I have children, I have this life. And there was a lot of years where I woke up every day hating everything about her, and she still showed up. So I'm on a mission to kind of like make up for lost time with her by feeding her good food. And don't get me wrong, I really enjoy all the junk food as well. Like I will have the cookies, the ice cream, the cakes, the chips, the salt, like all that stuff. But it's an 80-20. So I live my life 80%. I'm like, I try to be really good. I'm very conscious about what I eat. But then there's that 20% party side of Danielle who like, she likes to do some fun things and eat junk food. But for the most part, it's looking at my body as she's my best friend. And I have some best friends, and I would never say some of the things that I've said to myself to them. So I catch myself in that cycle sometimes of like, whoa, 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 she's your best friend. She like shows up for you and no one else does. So you need to be nice to her.
That was great. And for our final question on the podcast, it's usually known as the big question. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So our big question to you is, what advice would you give to people of younger generations?
So many things. So I just a full circle around. Just I wish I could just gather all of the young people and just like fill you full of light and like self-confidence. Because I feel like, and I watch my kids go through this too. I'm like, I just want you to see how amazing you are. And I know in the last couple of years, the world has been very uncertain. And I want to just, if I could tell the younger generation one thing, it would be, don't lose hope. Like, don't lose hope. Work hard. Chase after your dreams. The world is still full of lots of possibilities and opportunities. So believe in yourself, protect your, find your weak links, like your cave openings, right? And build up those walls to protect your worth. And that's kind of what I would tell you, is just to keep working hard, smile at strangers, and don't lose hope, because you are the future. And I'm here to support you in everything you guys want to accomplish. So
well, we just want to say thank you so much for taking the time with meeting with us. It was an absolute pleasure.
Well, thank you. It was an honor that you guys reached out, and I'm so happy we were able to chat today. So you guys have a fantastic day.
Yeah. All right. That's all we have for you guys on the Three Peaks podcast. We'll see you guys on the trail next time.